Welcome to the Parenting Great Kids podcast. Joining us today is Brent Dusing, the CEO and founder of Trueplay, a gaming platform that brings high-quality, fun, and biblically sound entertainment to audiences worldwide. With an impressive entrepreneurial journey, Brent pioneered game creation with Christian content through Lightside Games, reaching over 7 million game players worldwide. As a founder and CEO of Cellfire, he created the nation's leading mobile coupon company, which was later acquired for $108 million by Catalina Marketing. His accomplishments have been recognized by major news outlets like CNN, Fox News, ABC, The Wall Street Journal, and more. So thank you for being here as we delve into his insights and experiences in raising great kids in today's ever-changing world. Brent, I've been looking so forward to this podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, great to be with you, Meg. I have too. I read your Strong Father, Strong Daughters book in 2007 when my first child was born, and she just turned 16 and now has a driver's license. So literally last month. So it's funny how everything comes full circle, but that book was tremendous for me and actually made a big difference in the way that I thought about being a dad. So
well, I'm so grateful because I hope it encouraged you, and I hope that you have a better relationship with her now because you learned some things that could actually draw you together.
Yeah, I think so. I've actually got 2 daughters, and so hopefully it was a benefit to them both.
Well, let's dive into what you do. True confession up front, I don't like video games. So during this interview, I want you to convince me why I should like video games. That said, I've never seen video games like you've created. There's a lot out there that is just so bad for kids, violent. Yeah. Talk to me about your journey. When did you decide to start Trueplay, and how did it come about?
Yeah, we started Trueplay, really founded the company at the end of 2019, really got going in 2020. And here's what happened. I had, been a serial tech entrepreneur. We'd been blessed to have some success, but I was kind of wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I was getting bothered by what I was seeing. And here's some facts. Anxiety, suicide, and depression rates are at all-time highs for kids. And this was pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. And in our society, it's always said, and I mean, you in your profession, this, it's always said, well, let's just give more, spend more money. Let's just use more drugs. Our society isn't short of money or drugs. Right. What we're short of, what you realize is what we're short of is God's truth. What we're short of is welcoming God into our lives. So that was the first thing I saw. The second thing I saw was, just like you said, toxic content, pornography. The average male is exposed to pornography when he's 11 years old in this country. Hyper-violent content. Look, I'm not against action adventure, but there's a limit, and quite a few games and other forms of media crossed it a long time ago, right? Mm-hmm. Third, the worst statistic of all, and this really blew my mind, 62% of Americans believe in God that are over 40, which is actually pretty good compared to most countries, but only 32% of kids.
Wow.
So you ask yourself, well, wow, how did we get here? Mm-hmm. Well, it's not because scientists discovered that, God doesn't exist, because he does. We talk all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, people under 18 know more than adults. No, it's because kids are on a screen 52 and a half hours a week. And the average American's only at church for 30 minutes because only less than half of Americans go to church. For the first time in my life, less than half of Americans go to church. And look, I'm not here to tell you every game's bad or every, movie or every video. No, of course not. There's a lot of neutral stuff. There's a lot of things that, aren't Christian. I grew up as a huge fan of Star Wars, the original Star Wars movies, Christopher Reeve's version of Superman. Mm-hmm. But when you look at how much toxic content there is, how much sexual content there is for young children and hyper-violent stuff and glorifying drug use, and all of those things have really terrible consequences that we've known for a long time. But that's become this huge deleterious effect on our kids. And so anyway, so we started with saying to ourselves, look, let's go build a platform. Let's build an experience. Mm-hmm. So what Trueplay is, it's not just a video game. It's a platform you subscribe to, like you would subscribe to a Netflix or a Disney Plus type of experience, except you get access to all these video games, digital comics, video content. We're adding new stuff all the time. Everything we do is built to be fun, because we want you to enjoy it and really engage. It's built to be beautiful, and you can see that in our artwork at Trueplay, but it's also built to share God's truth. Whether we're telling stories from the Bible or whether we're telling stories from the Rimverse, which I'm happy to tell you more about, that's what our games are about, is how do we bring God's truth in a relevant way into your experience.
So I'm embarrassed to say I've never done it. I've never played it because I've never played video games. Do you teach scripture? I mean, do kids actually learn through this? They learn their Bible stories and Old Testament, New Testament, or do you just allude to it?
Well, we just released it on iOS in June and on Android last week, so don't be ashamed. It's brand spanking new. The way that we do it is some of our games are games based on the Bible. So we have a game called Stained Glass, where you form these puzzles with stained glass pieces. You collect pieces enough to make a stained glass window. The stained glass window comes to life, and a character from the Bible tells you the story. Like Eve will tell you from a first-person viewpoint, what was it like to live in the Garden of Eden? Wow. Noah will tell you what his experience was like building the boat, and we get into some of the more personal moments. For example, with Noah, a lot of people don't consider the fact that it must have been really hard on Noah's wife if you consider that only 8 people made it on the ark. None of his wife's brothers or sisters, not her parents, not her nieces and nephews, right? Everybody she knew besides her immediate family was dead. So it's getting into a little bit more of the human experience of what would it have been like to go through that. We have another game that we're releasing next quarter called King David's Battles. King David is probably the most action-packed story in the entire Bible. And you've got, David going from being a young boy, a teenager really, to growing up to being a man and going, being challenged and depending on God and, being brave and bold. And that's not a message we teach anymore. I know that's been a big part of your writings and your work. We don't tell that message through media anymore. We don't teach boys in a constructive way. How do you become men? And that it's all over the Bible. But we want to bring that to you in an interactive, fun adventure game. Now, some of our other games, there's a game where there's scripture woven in. You fly this light and you try to light up as many candles as you can before you crash. And there's scripture woven in that are tied to light. There's another one where it's a word game. So you're combining letters to make words, and there's scripture that comes out as the words get fulfilled. And then we have this big epic adventure called the Rimverse. And the Rimverse is, you might look at our website and see a bunny rabbit with a tiger costume or a skunk with a crocodile robot suit. There are all these characters who are kids who have their own personalities and their own shortcomings and strengths, which we can talk about, where they live in this fantasy world with, spaceships and bad guys and fireballs and adventures, but they also live in a world where God is real and the Bible's true. And they're encountering real evil that are trying to corrupt and manipulate the society they're in. So it's basically fantasy characters in the fantasy setting, but with real personalities and real world experiences with a real God.
Wow. I'm sitting here trying to envision everything that you're talking about. Now, I have a lot of questions. Who created the content? Did you create the content?
Our team does. So we create everything inside the Trueplay platform. We've created, with the exception of we have a partnership with the Action Bible. You might know the Action Bible from David C. Cook. It's a phenomenal kids Bible, one of my favorites. They've sold millions of copies of it, and so we've got some of their digital comics inside the platform, and we're adding more all the time. But everything else we've built. We've got a tremendous team of people, just a tremendous group of writers and creatives who come up with ideas. And we kind of said, okay, the game has to be fun. This is not too often. I think Christian entertainment for kids can be sold like Robitussin. I know this doesn't taste great, but you need it. It'll help your cough. Yeah. We don't do that, right? We want to produce chocolate cake with vitamins and calcium and protein, so the kid wants to eat it. And mom says, actually, that's better than the cereal I was going to give him when I look at the nutritional side of the box, right?
Yeah.
So everything's got to be fun. It's got to be beautiful because we serve a God of beauty. Frankly, as Christians, we used to make the best paintings, the best buildings, the best music. Now that we lost that in the late 1800s, but that started to come back when you see what some different creatives are doing in the Christian space. And then, of course, we have to deliver God's truth. We're here to bring God's light to a world that we think is getting darker, that we think needs it, especially for young people.
darker and darker and darker. And I'm old enough. I mean, you're a lot younger than I, but I'm sure you've seen tremendous changes since the time, your daughters were born, and it just is gotten exponentially worse. What's your target? Who's your target audience, and what age ranges are using your platform?
Our target audience are really families with children between 5 to 13. What's funny is we have some games that are for younger and some are for older kids. But what's funny is that as we tested, we have a lot of, children would test our games before we released. But then we'd have their parents say, hey, can I play that too? Do you mind if I give it a try? So we found a lot of parents will play together with their kids. A lot of mobile games are played by adults. The vast majority of players for games like Candy Crush and Angry Birds were adults.
Yeah.
And a lot of, mobile gaming, a lot of people don't realize more money was spent on mobile gaming last year than on tickets at movie theaters.
Well, I can believe it. I can believe it. Yep.
Yeah. And so, and that's coming from parents as much as it is kids spending the money inside the game. So it's, we really find that it's something that families really enjoy doing. And we try to write it like maybe some of the best animated shows that you've seen where the kids enjoy it, but there's also some jokes and some humor and frankly, some deeper drama, that we think adults can appreciate as well.
So how long have the games been out? You created the platform in 2019. How long have the actual games been out?
Well, we just released the entire platform. We started the company in late 2019, but we just released the platform in late June on Apple iOS, and then we just turned it on last week on Android on Google. So it's really, it's brand new, brand new. And so the platform has all the games inside it. And you can come in and play the games. There's also digital comic books with some great audio and music. There's some video content too. So there's a lot. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of entertainment content, and we're adding new stuff all the time. So there's a lot of stuff people can do to hopefully have a great experience.
So you don't have to go on the internet to get there.
You don't. You can either download it from the App Store, or you can go to trueplaygames.com and download it. You can purchase through our website, but you're going to use it on your phone or your iPad or your Android tablet. We're averaging a pretty close to perfect 4.9 out of 5 rating on the App Store. We're getting great comments and feedback from people that say things like, finally, I have something I can trust for my kids. There's no ads, there's no in-app purchases, there's no chat with strangers or anything that a lot of parents have become rightfully concerned about. There's none of that. So they know they can trust it. We've been endorsed by some phenomenal people. Will Graham at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, the CEO of Promise Keepers, who you may know, Sam Rodriguez, the late Jack Haver had endorsed our products previously, Candace Cameron. So we've had a lot of just great people. Dean Cain had a lot of great people kind of endorse and support what we're doing. So people are excited about it.
I think one of the biggest things that you offer parents, because I hear from parents all the time, and I've never met a parent who wants their child to have an iPhone, wants their child to be playing video games, or wants their children in this because they're afraid it's a safety issue. So for you to be able to come forward and say, this is safe, don't worry about it, you don't know what a relief that is for parents, because every parents feel this sort of angst when it comes to games or being on the internet. I was just talking to my granddaughter this morning. We were cooking together, and she said, my parents let me watch this show. And I said, well, I need to talk to your mother. I can boss her around because she's my daughter. You should not be watching that. And I think that a lot of parents just sort of renege because they think this is it. I can't battle it. But you give them a way. You give them a great alternative. And I'm excited for that because I've watched and talked to so many parents and so many kids. And one of my big battles with boys is these violent video games.
Yeah.
And no matter how much data I tell parents, they're like, well, what can we do? And I thought, well, there's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
So I'm excited that you came out with this. Now, how did your role as a parent play into any of this, or did?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And by the way, we have, almost 100 people working here in different capacities. So it's not really just about me. There's we have this tremendous team, and they're really, truly world-class people. I mean, people who have built a lot of games that you might have played or built, features on like the head of engineering literally built the feature at Amazon where it says, split this into different packages. You buy an order, split it into different packages. This package will get here faster. One of our writers wrote books, co-author books with Josh McDowell that sold 3 million copies. So we have this tremendous team of people, great artists and storytellers and game designers. And anyway, and most of them are parents. And we're parents just like you guys listening out there. We're parents just like you. We're also professionals in our creative space, in the game space. But, we were concerned, and we're concerned about our children's future and their well-being and their mental health and their souls. Meg, I mean, how many organizations would take a step back? There's some great groups like Samaritan's Purse and Compassion and World Vision that serve children in, developing nations in real, true poverty. But how many organizations can you really name that look out for the interest of our children here in America for the betterment for their own betterment, not to extract money out of their parents' pockets or produce values that are counter to what your mama taught you?
Yeah. Oh,
there's hardly
none. Well, there's none. There isn't any. And I think that's why it's so awesome that you stepped in. You stepped into an environment which was probably hostile towards you. Our environment in general is hostile towards Christians. And I think that there's a sense that we just kind of get overwhelmed and you feel, I can't compete in this. There's so much money there. And even for me, telling parents, please keep your daughters off social media. For heaven's sakes, the Surgeon General has said it's bad for kids. So to step into this space and say, okay, but we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to use your technology just like you guys do. And guess what? We're going to go in a different direction. And hopefully that will encourage some other people in different realms to do the exact same thing. And I think you're convincing me to like games. Were you hesitant when you started down this path thinking, gee whiz, I'm really chartering new territory here because I'm entering a world which isn't great. I'll say that. It was ugly. And I'm going to go in a reverse direction. Were you afraid you weren't going to be successful? Were you afraid you'd get pushback?
No, I'll say a couple things. One, we'd built previously games at a company called Lightside, my co-founders and I, that build explicitly biblical games. I mean, Journey of Jesus, Journey of Moses, Stained Glass, that we had 7 million people play these games, 7 million. And the core audience played them for like 8 or 9 years and really good statistics on engagement rates and retention rates. Like the average player of Journey of Jesus played it 3 times a day for 15 minutes per play session. So we knew how to build games that people enjoyed that told a biblical story. I spent 15 years in Silicon Valley, and I spent 4 years in Cambridge, Massachusetts, close to where you grew up. So I knew that there was an audience that was going to be against, but I also knew there was a huge audience that was going to be for that just wasn't being fed. And when you look at the success, there is a movement happening. You look at how well The Passion of the Christ did 20 years ago. Now you look more recently, things like The Chosen, things like The Sound of Freedom that just happened. You look at, the Bible app on your phone, 500 million downloads, one of the most successful downloaded pieces of software of all time. There's a big market out there. It's just that the people who traditionally make content aren't interested or willing or able to serve that audience. And so, or to serve that need. And the other thing that I knew was that there was a big audience in the middle who weren't necessarily Christians, but who wanted this. As an example, a third of our 7 million players at our previous Christian gaming company were not Christians. We surveyed people about Trueplay as a concept, which surveyed 500 non-Christian parents in 2021, and we found 56% said they would be interested in subscribing. And the reason is most parents, whether they're Christians or not, they don't want sexual content for the kids at 5 years old. Right. They don't want hyper-violent content. Sure, it's okay to have let's have a sword fight, let's have a big fun adventure, but there's a line of gruesomeness, of cheapening of human life that people don't want to see the threshold. They don't want to see their kids cross. And so, I mean, the other thing that I would say is, I was really called to this, and that most of my team you were to speak to them, would say that they were called. And there are people who will tell you, gosh, this was a dream I had for 10 years, or for 20 years. And, this opportunity came up. And so I think it's something God's really woven together, and we're pretty excited to see what he's going to do with it.
Yeah, that is so exciting. And I think, when you're in your sweet spot, when you're working in the spot where God called you, there's really nothing like it. And I think you're right. My understanding, my belief, is that the majority of parents with small children out there don't want a lot of violence and sexual content and bad language coming at their kids, even when they're 10 or even when they're 15.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm not surprised at all that they would say, I will join a Christian platform because it's got good stuff in it. It's very opposite of what I'm offered, or my kids are offered, elsewhere. Can people play games together?
Right now, the way Trueplay works is you buy a family plan. So when you subscribe, you and your kids and your spouse, you can all each have your own profile. So your progress in your games and your scores are your own. You don't have to worry about people messing up your high score. So you can compare that against other people in your family, but we will one day build the ability so you can play games together with family members and things, but that's kind of on the roadmap. We kind of started with experiences you can just enjoy in the moment, and then we'll be building to that over time.
I'm curious about entrepreneurship. I know you've started a couple different things.
Sure.
Clearly, that's who you are, and that's how God made you to be. What are some of the struggles in starting up a company like this, or are there?
Well, there certainly are, and starting any company is not easy. There's some great quotes by Elon Musk and Steve Jobs about entrepreneurship. I think I'd say a couple things. The first is that, and I didn't make this quote up, but I can't remember who to attribute to. It's like, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they realize what you're doing, and then you succeed, and then they say it was their idea in the first place. and that has always been my experience. I guess the second thing I would say is that it's there's a lot that kind of has to happen when you're doing something that's not only entrepreneurial but also in the building the kingdom. What we're really doing is we're trying to apply best practices from Silicon Valley in terms of the way companies are operated. Because, if you think about most of the companies that have kind of produced the most economic value have been, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, not necessarily social value, but economic value.
Yeah.
But to go achieve Christian mission, right, kind of requires a fusion of both. And so, there's certainly been a lot of moments we've had where, God's been all over, whether it was, people who have come to work here, or even the way stories have come together, or opportunities that have opened up. It's certainly something where you're kind of moving forward in an experience with God as you're trying to do your best work and build your company and build a product and all those things.
Well, again, I ask that because often, being an entrepreneur, particularly when you've lived in Silicon Valley, I mean, you're surrounded by people who perhaps aren't, they don't agree with your values. And then certainly when we think of entrepreneurs, it's kind of, it can be, kind of hard. You might be going against the grain of the culture, maybe even the business culture. Or perhaps they haven't, how have your friends or acquaintances in Silicon Valley responded to this, or do they not know about Trueplay?
They know. There's no secrets. Look, there are still a few Christians left in Silicon Valley. There's not a lot. There is a remnant. Yeah. So they've been positive and supportive, but it's hard for them. It's hard. I live in Austin, Texas now, but I have seen it to be hard for people who are Christians in Silicon Valley, because I think the environment just feels oppressive. It's hard for them to talk about it. It's hard for them to bring it up. They seem strange and countercultural. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I lived there that I'd get invited to a children's birthday party on Sunday morning.
Wow.
And I'd say, wait, like, what are you talking about? We're at church. And they'd look at you and say, wait, do people still do that?
Yeah.
And so it was a kind of a very, very strange thing. But look, at the end of the day, you do what God's called you to do. What did Jesus say? He said, I come not to bring peace, but a sword. And there's going to be a dividing line, and some people are going to be with God's plan, and some are not, and it kind of is what it is.
Really, your platform is quite evangelical, and
Sure.
that's wonderful because you're bringing in a whole sector of users who may well have not gone to church or be familiar with it, maybe because of where they live. And so that's pretty cool. What are your hopes and dreams for the platform for Trueplay?
Sure. I mean, our vision is really to change culture for the entire next generation of children. As I said, we don't see anybody standing up for children at scale in America. We see those who are pushing messages on kids to have very toxic and deleterious effects to their minds and their bodies and their souls.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and again, if the stat is 62% of adults and only 32% of kids believe in God, what if we change that? What if we change that from 30 to 40 to 50 to over 50? You'd see a whole generation change. You see a whole culture change. I see so many kids being exploited and being lied to and being, physically harmed.
Mm-hmm.
And society kind of turning a blind eye. The legalization of drugs leading to, guess what? Brain damage in children where drugs are legalized. I mean, the Surgeon General came out and said that.
Right.
And it kind of just, let's move on. That's hardly even a conversation. And it breaks my heart to see our most vulnerable, because, I mean, Meg, you work with families in psychiatry and counseling for years and years. So often people will come and say, well, when I was a kid, this happened to me, and that's why things are the way they are, right? And I'm not dismissing that.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, now we're the adults in the room,
mm-hmm.
right? I'm late Gen X. So it's late Gen X and millennials. We're the ones raising the next generation. And our heart, all of us who work at Trueplay, is, look, we think parents make the best parents.
Mm-hmm.
Not someone else.
Sure.
And so far, we have different values than you. So we're here to come alongside parents and give you experiences that we want to hope, change the way you see and you dream and your vision and bring back hope and joy and love. Steve Jobs said the most powerful person in society is the storyteller when he was running Pixar. He said that in the break room. So for us, it's, why don't we tell stories that contain God's truth and values based on the best-selling book of all time?
Right.
And let's go see hearts and minds change, whether you're a believer and you just have your faith strengthened, or whether you've never met Jesus Christ, or you don't know what's in the Bible, and we'll bring you on a journey. We'll see who you meet.
It's awesome. I think that you are going to have a huge impact on millions of families. And many years ago, when I first started out practicing medicine, older colleagues said to me, if you really want to help kids, help their parents. And so a lot of my, work has been geared towards encouraging parents, giving parents just some hope and some tools. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're coming in and you're giving them hope and good things that their kids can use and that they can feel good about. And I think, and my hope would be and dream for this, is that you'd see a huge conversion of families, come to Christ and realize the world doesn't have to live crazy, because we really have normalized crazy. My guest has been Brent Dusing. He is the CEO and founder of Trueplay. You have to check it out. Brent, how can people get hold of you? How can they find out about Trueplay? I know it's brand new, so give them some guidance here.
Yeah, please join us at trueplaygames.com. You can subscribe. You can buy a subscription there on Android or iOS. Pretty much work on any device you have, and you buy a plan for your whole family for one price, and all your kids and yourself you can play too, whether you want to admit it or not. But you play video games on your devices. We also just launched T-shirts, so we got T-shirts on the website too. We're going to be launching an opportunity for people very shortly to start sponsoring content as we build more and more games and start to build more and more video content. We're able to come on board and do that. And you can also find us on the app stores, just truplay.com. And hopefully, Meg, maybe we'll change your mind on enjoying video games a little bit, and maybe it's something you can do with your grandkids too.
Well, I'm pretty close because you know what I'm going to do? I was just thinking, this is a great gift to give friends. I'm going to give this to all of my son-in-laws
Thank you.
because they love games, and and they like to play them with their kids. And I'm going to say, okay, here you go. Here's your birthday present. So, Brent, blessings to you. Best of luck for you with Trueplay. I think it's going to do tremendously well. Thanks for joining me.
It's an honor to spend some time with you, and I really appreciate everything you've done for families. Like I said, I love strong fathers, strong daughters, made a big difference in my life, and it's great to spend the time with you today, Meg. Thank you.